Hello, I apologise for the appalling lighting situation. I didn't get my ass in gear early enough to record this today, and I won't get another chance to do so for a few days now, and I'm already very late to the party because what I'm talking about technically started happening last weekend, so forgive me, but it's really important that I get this information out to anyone who wants to listen. I don't know if you can hear my cat in the background. So I'm really excited to talk about the Jupiter Uranus conjunction, which was exact last weekend, April 20th. This transit is associated with periods of major scientific and technological advantages, as well as revolution and rebellion and upheaval and paradigm shifts. Later on, I'm going to give you some more specific examples of events that have happened in history that have coincided with this transit, just to give you more of an example. But first, I want to give a bit more information about it. So Jupiter's orbit is roughly every 12 years and Uranus's is every 84 roughly. So they meet every 14 years roughly. And of course, planets retrograde, so sometimes there'll be a few meetings across like a year. Despite the exact date, obviously last weekend, because these are outer planets, they're slow moving planets. So if you are using an sort of like a 15-degree baseline, then the transit itself lasts for about 14 months, which is what Richard Tarnas uses, and he wrote Cosmos and Psyche, which if any of what I'm talking about today interests you, I highly recommend you pick up a copy and have a look for yourself, because what can be fit into like a 15-minute video is an absolute fraction of the other information out there. So when these planets go conjunct, it's both the culmination of a cycle and the ignition of a new cycle. Think of it as like sine waves or spirals of energy that kind of like builds and ebbs. So Jupiter-Uranus conjunctions and oppositions tend to coincide with periods of major scientific breakthrough and advancements, as well as revolution and rebellion against social constraints. Now, I say coincide because there is a serious misunderstanding in the popular culture's conception of astrology. Well, I mean, there's certainly more than one misconception, but the one I'm specifically talking about today is people seem to think that the planet's movements causes anything. Correlation is not causation, and we would all benefit from reminding ourselves this often. As far as I'm concerned, and many astrologers will tell you, the planets aren't necessarily causing anything to happen. What we're looking at is the Hermetic principle or law of correspondence, which is as above, so below, as within, so without. The macrocosm reflects the microcosm and vice versa. So when we talk about these alignments coinciding with certain events, it's not saying that it literally means that the planets are causing anything. It's that when you look back at history, you can look at the pattern and see what has corresponded to. And that can be on a collective level, and that can be on an individual level as well, if you know your birth chart. But also, like I said in a previous video, if we are infected, that was a good slip. If we are affected by our environment, which we are, on many levels, and if the solar system is part of our environment and the universe is part of our environment, which I'd say it is, then it is worth considering that the movement of the celestial bodies do have some impact on the interplay of the subtle energies which surround us. And remember how little human beings are actually able to sense in terms of the electromagnetic spectrum. The heavens, the stars, the planets, the constellations have been loaded with symbolic meaning, archetypal energy or essence for thousands and thousands of years. So whether or not someone personally believes it, it's kind of irrelevant. That shit is lodged deep in the collective psyche. And, you know, humans have been telling stories about the stars and assigning meaning to the stars for as long as humans have been telling stories and looking at the stars, which is probably as long as humans have been human. Come in! What is it? Sorry. Come inside. Hi. My number one fan. Apologies. So the planet Jupiter, which in Western astrology rules Sagittarius and is archetypally associated with the Greek god Zeus, as well as the Mesopotamian god Marduk and the Hindu god Ganesh, is associated with the principles of expansion, abundance, exuberance, travel, philosophy, higher meaning, success, elevation, greater understanding and meaning, recognition, good fortune, as well as more negative aspects of excess and aggrandizement. Then we have Uranus, associated with Uranus, which was a Greek primordial god of the sky, and Prometheus, who brought fire to humanity. Come on. And the themes associated with Uranus are sudden change, breakthrough, invention, innovation, brilliance, genius, rebellion against constraints and the status quo, freedom and liberation, erraticness, eccentricity, electricity, unpredictability, technology and advancement, impulse towards novelty and the new, and trickster energy. So when you combine the two, we get on a collective and personal level scientific and technological breakthroughs, collective relief from challenge, sudden bursts of inspiration, expansion of consciousness, aha moments, creative breakthroughs, intellectual, spiritual or artistic brilliance, broadened horizons, both literally and figuratively. You might find an impulse to travel or go back into some form of education, successful rebellions against limitations, successful new beginnings, sudden cultural advances, paradigm shifts, rebirth. And then of course on a negative level, we have the potential for this to manifest in terms of manic energy, sudden manic energy, sudden unexpected excess of wealth or fame, overconfidence, and risk-taking. You don't need that. Some examples of events that have coincided with this transit are in 1608 and 1609, we have the modern invention of the telescope, and then Galileo began applying its use to astronomy. In 1609 as well, Kepler began publishing his Astronomia Nova, which put forward the mathematical evidence to support the Copernican model of heliocentrism. The 1623-24 conjunction, we have Shakespeare publishing his first folio of plays. 1775, we have the American Revolutionary War. 1789 conjunction was 2 weeks before the French Revolution, the storming of the Bastille. In 1927, we have the first solo Atlantic flight. And again, in 1927, we have the expanding universe theory, which was put forward in a paper by a priest called Georges Lemaitre, which we now know as the start of the Big Bang Theory. We have in 1969 the Apollo 11 moon landing, which was literally at the moment that Jupiter, Uranus, Pluto, and the moon were in a quadruple conjunction, and whether or not you believe that actually took place because of the radiation belts and all the other stuff is another conversation. And in 1968 to 1969, because of the retrograde causing the conjunctions to kind of last across that time, there were massive anti-war protests in universities across America, which sounds familiar, as well as student revolts in France and the start and the and a lot of civil rights movements. And then in 1997, during a conjunction between Neptune, Uranus and Jupiter. Now Neptune obviously rules like fantasy and the unseen. We have the first Harry Potter book published. And again, regardless of how you feel about J.K. Rowling, that did have a huge cultural impact. So the takeaway that I want to encourage people to take from this information is to be hopeful and take action. And if you have been feeling particularly inspired over the last few months, make sure you're writing down your ideas and make sure you're doing something with this energy. Know that great change is not just possible, it is inevitable. The only constant is change. And a special shout out to the people that I've seen in the videos and the images that we're seeing across the world, the protests that are being, held against the psychic virus that is colonialism. This movement will continue to build and progress, and seeing so many people protesting on behalf of Palestine and many other movements is giving me a lot of hope. This is the perfect time for the start of a successful revolution. Let's go and free Palestine.